or maybe not. Screw it. We'll just go back.
Yeah.
See, like I said, we're super professional here. Everything's very professional. So Christina Vicario,
Vicario, yeah, that's
Vicario,
perfect.
and you make documentaries for some reason. I guess you want people to know things about stuff. What's
Exactly.
what's sort of your background, Christina?
Sure, yeah. So I started in sports journalism actually, and that's what I went to college for. And I went in wanting to be a Sports Illustrated writer, and I still love writing. But when I was in college, one of my friends, we had to sort of choose a track, whether that was print or broadcast journalism. And so I already was doing print for so many years, and they're like, just try something you don't know. Like it can't hurt to like diversify, especially since like at that time, that's when newspapers were starting to struggle and they're like, just try it. And so I tried one video class and sort of never looked back, like as cliche as that is, but I love telling stories visually, and you can say so much by saying so little, which I love.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of how I got started. And then I finished out, I did a lot of sports coverage in Arizona. I went to Arizona State, the Walter Cronkite School for journalism. And then after that, I stayed out there for a little around 2 years working there. And then I moved back to Boston and went right into working for the city of Boston as their videographer and digital storyteller. And now I'm part time. They're one of my clients that I work for part time. And then I have my own videography business called Kviography. And then in that realm, I do commercial, lifestyle, and documentary work. So that's kind of my little backstory.
So you started out as a sports girl. That makes sense why you were asking me about the Magic earlier. You probably hate me now since I'm like I don't like sports.
No, all good. I was asking George if he's a Heat fan because the Celtics Heat are playing game 3 tonight. So we
Yeah, and I'm
really
like,
need it.
oh, game
Yeah.
three of what? So yeah, that's about how into sports I am. And then you met this dapper young fellow over on the in the corner, Jason Krupat. Really doesn't need an introduction. Jason, people like people think and people in this community think they know who Jason is because Jason's never really said a whole lot aside from a couple of like news interviews and some interviews with Expedition Unknown. People assume that they know who Jason is. Let me tell you who I know Jason to be. The few times that I've had interactions with Jason, he's been a very kind guy who has really shown that he loves just this dumb little puzzle that we all love. Jason's the kind of guy who doesn't really do much out in the open, but you start talking to people and you're like, because of who I am, I get people who come to me and they're like I had a high school kid once who was like, hey, I reached out to Jason Krupat and he came and he did an interview for our school about The Secret, and he talked about like how great it was that this puzzle exists that gets families out to have adventures and teach you about history. And that's the kind of person I know Jason to be. So, Jason, thanks for coming on. I know every single person in this chat and in this live stream wants me to grill you about Boston. They all want to know what your 5 steps are. They all want to know what, Green Tower of Lights really is. They all want to know what it was like filming with Josh Gates. But I ain't going to ask you any of that because I don't care. I think the community kind of knows what they need to know at this point, and I feel like the story that they want you to tell. Like my philosophy with interviews has always been not to sort of drag a story out of a person. It was more to get them comfortable with the community so much that they tell the story themselves, right? Because it's your story to tell on your terms. So my goal is not to get all of this information out of you. It's just to have a conversation and sort of show you that not all the community is crazy. So, dude, thanks for coming, both you and Christina. I think we got some exciting stuff to talk about, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Grateful for you for to you for having me on. Nice to see you again, Christina. And yeah, as George mentioned, I haven't done a lot of kind of external publicity since the Cask was discovered about, I guess, 3.5 years ago or so. But it was a pretty remarkable adventure. And as George mentioned, I didn't go into this actually having any expectation that we'd find one. In fact, I thought that the chances were basically infinitesimal. As I think I mentioned in the Discovery episode, quite literally, my kids were big Josh Gates fans, big Expedition Unknown fans, and they called me up one day to watch this episode where they were searching for buried treasure, and we grabbed a book on Amazon a week later and went into Boston for our first hunt around the city, and continued to do that for the next couple of years, looking at landmarks and trying to kind of triangulate where we thought it could be. With um, a little bit of nudging, a little bit of luck, we got kind of fortunate that we stumbled upon it that year. So
And you
yeah,
lost a lot of weight. You
I
had some
lost a
fun
lot
with
of
your
weight along the
kids.
way. Yeah,
Like maybe
yeah.
I
So I
should
mean,
I should hunt with you.
yeah, no, certainly the it sounds cliche, but the journey was the adventure, and we've kind of laid low since then. And Christina contacted me, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, and said that she'd read the Boston Globe article, and was interested in kind of working on a piece about it. I can let Christina talk a little bit more about it, but that's kind of how we ended up bumping into each other, and figured now is a good time to you know chat about it a little bit more, open up about some of the adventure along the way, and do this Boston meetup in I guess probably 4 or 6 weeks to meet some of the members of the community in person.
Yeah. There's some people who are really excited about that. Like people have been asking for a Boston meetup for a long time, but it's hard to plan. Boston's so damn expensive, and it's kind of far out there. But I'm glad we're doing it now. Christina, that he brought up a good question. Like you guys started this documentary um, to talk about Boston, but it kind of quickly expanded. Like what made it expand past just Boston?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess back, I think it was either right before the pandemic or right after, but that's when I read the article. I know it was after because it was 2019, I think, right, Jason, that you and your family found the Boston Treasure. So I think it was probably like end of 2020 that I read this article, and I was like, this would be such a great story. And I was just thinking of it from a Boston lens because that was what I had learned from like the short amount of research that I did like right away, very quickly. And so when I contacted the writer of the article, and he put me into contact with Jason, I connected with Jason, and then Jason was like, actually, like this is so much bigger. Like it's, there's this vibrant, almost like underground community. I say that just saying like that not everybody knows that this community exists, but it's so active and vibrant and like interesting. And the people I've gotten to talk to so far just have the most like incredible stories. And so then it turned in, and then Jason had also taught me about how different images depicted sort of different immigrant groups and things like that. So I was like, this is just an incredible story all the way around. And so that's when we sort of started to expand from there. And then that's when Jason then put me in contact with George to get a little bit more information, as he told me George is sort of known as the godfather of the hunt. And so I don't know if that's what you say, George, but
It's not what I say. Other people say it. Not what I say.
And so and then from there, both Jason and George have helped me to kind of share resources so I could do more research about the community and about the book and about appearances and all of that, and about all the incredible people that went into creating this hunt. So that's kind of where we are now, and that's where we started too.
Nice. But so I and like, let me think of how to phrase this next question, because so there, like, the community has dealt with documentary filmmakers before. Like there's a documentary out that's pretty, it's not out, but pretty famously, it kind of took advantage of some members of the community, and then it just was never released, right? So And there's a lot of TV producers and stuff that lurk the groups and try to get information from people. Um, your documentary is not about the search, really, right? Like, you're not looking for people to come on and tell you all of their ideas and then go dig up a treasure. Your documentary is more about the community as a whole and the secret as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's the secret, and the community as a whole is at the heart of the story. Like, almost how the enjoyment and adventure of the hunt is more even important. Oh, sorry, there's so many sirens right by where I live.
It's okay,
But
we can't hear any of them.
Okay, great. Is even more important sometimes. That, I mean, obviously everyone wants to find the treasure, so that's very important. But it's sort of the enjoyment, the community, the experiences you cultivate together, and the sort of people and things that you meet along the way that just kind of makes this soar. And so that's truly what it's about. And this will be made. It's not going to be something that's going to be dropped. I mean, I know none of you know me at all, but I'm a person of my word. I'm not going to just start something and then never finish it. We already have so much good content, and there's so many great interviews to come. And my whole heart is in creating this. So, I mean, we're shooting for the stars and trying to make this as good as it can be and get it to the powers that be. But even if none of that happens, it will be released and everybody will be able to see it, because that is the very essence of what I love to do, our documentaries. And I want to keep doing that for the rest of my life. So it will be made.
And like, just so people know, I mean, when you say something you said just now made it seem like you were just starting this, but you're not. You've worked on this for a while. Like, you've got interviews complete.
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely.
Like,
and I can,
and
yeah.
not just people like Jason. Like, you've interviewed Joe Ellen. Your interview with Joe Ellen is complete. Like, you're already interviewed creators of the book. This documentary is well on its way.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked to Jason, plans with you, George. Joellen, I traveled to her home and we did an interview there. The kindest woman. And just, again, an incredible storyteller. Every single person I've met has been an incredible storyteller. That is what I know will make this story sing, is both of you incredible. So them, and then I know we've touched base with, a lot of other folks. You've had calls with, I think, John and the community. And then I've had calls with Andy, who's also interested. So there's, we are well into this and just continuing to search for it. And we're really excited about the Boston Meetup too, to get some more footage there. So it's going to be great.
Yeah. So speaking of the Boston footage at the Boston Meetup, one of the goals, Jason approached me about doing the Boston Meetup, which was odd because me and Jason we've talked some, we haven't talked a lot. So to get a message from Jason was like, oh, okay, what's going on now? And he was interested in doing the Boston Meetup for this documentary. It started out a little grander, like the ideas for the Boston Meetup started out a little grander than I think they're going to end up being. Like, in the beginning, we were planning on like flying in John Palancar and Brian Zinn and Andy Abrams and Rob and Tim and all of the guys that found Chicago. We were trying to get everybody together in one place before we realized that was expensive, and documentary budgets don't have that. So we switched gears, and the Boston Meetup's a little smaller. It's like a day in the park. I'm going to be there. Jason's going to be there. You're going to be there. But your goal with the Boston Meetup is to interview searchers, not necessarily about their ideas, but about their experiences, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And not a ton. It's going to be, I'll say it's mostly B-roll. And so for people that don't know, like footage during the event and interactions that are happening between people, I'll put on the mic and with everyone's permission to make sure that we can get some like cool exchanges, that sort of thing. And then maybe some sort of like man on the street type interviews during it. Most of the interviews for this will sort of be like sit down, like long form interviews. So we won't be doing a ton of that on that day. But and I also wanted to say, like, even people I hadn't mentioned before, that doesn't mean we're not going to like reach out to those folks as well. I know there's so many more big names in the community and we'll definitely make sure to hit on all of them. So I just want to be, clear that I only mentioned a couple before, but yeah, so that's kind of the intention for the day, is just to get interactions, I'll say, and then some searchers as well, maybe some quick quotes from them.
Yeah. Has it sort of like, because in the multiple conversations we've had, it seems you're sort of surprised by what this community does. Like, it seems like you came into this thinking, like, I'm going to talk to a couple of people at this park, and then you started realizing, like, what all we do together. Like, it seemed to blow your mind when you found out we have a cruise.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, am I allowed to mention the cruise?
Yeah, you can mention whatever you want.
That's exactly what yeah, exactly. I mean, as when I came into this, I was like, wow, Jason's a great storyteller, because he was the first one I had talked to. And then, like I said, every time I met another person, I'm like, wow, they're a great storyteller. Wow, she's a great storyteller. And so I felt like then I was like, not only are these folks who just have so much to say so interesting at their core, but also like the meetups and the events and the Facebook groups and the Reddit groups and the crews, like, of folks that are interested. I mean, it's so it's just so interesting, because there's not a lot of communities that are this engaged about one thing. And so I think it's just such a beautiful thing, and that's why I am like, this needs to be a documentary. So yeah, I'm surprised every single day. I learn more information from each time I talk to somebody every single day.
Jason, are you excited for the meetup? What are you, I guess when you approached me, it was a surprise. And you, like, every time we talk, you're gung ho for this meetup. You want it to happen. I'm curious what your goal is with it.
Yeah, so you and I have connected a few times over the years, and I realized that you and a lot of other members of the community hadn't actually had an opportunity to see the spot where the cask was found. And so I reached out to you thinking that there might be a good opportunity if you were going to plan on holding a meetup again in any city, especially kind of post-pandemic where it's easier to be together, that Boston would be a great location. And as Christina mentioned, it's become a big part of my life. I enjoy sort of telling the story to the family and friends. I've taken folks that I know down to that spot. It's really kind of a special place. And so I just thought it'd be a lot of fun for you, good opportunity for Christina to meet some folks, and a good opportunity to meet members of the community and share a little bit about how we found it and the adventure that we had.
And I think we're expecting, I don't know, 20 or 30 people. It's not going to be huge. We're talking about meeting up at the park and just hanging out for a couple hours. Um, just meeting everybody, having a good time, maybe walking down to a bar and grabbing some food, grabbing a drink, and just sort of making an afternoon about it. It's not, there's not, I know most of the meetups that we do are really formal, like there's a table and a couple of chairs and a microphone and we record an interview and then we go on our way. It's not anything like that. It's like a normal, everybody just get together and hang out sort of meetup.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're in that spot, and again, I know it sounds cliche, like it all kind of makes sense, right? You have to actually be in that spot where home plate used to be, and looking out at the water and seeing the stairs behind you and seeing the USS Constitution to the left and the Coliseum to the left and the giant towers of light and the Tobin Bridge and all those other things. It's sort of when you're in that spot, you sort of know. And that's when myself and my family were in that spot, we we're like, it's gotta be here. And you don't really, if you look at it on Google Maps, you don't really get that until you're actually in that spot, and then you look over your back shoulder and you see that that's the spot where Paul Revere would have come down there weren't stairs there, but where the stairs are now. And there are a bunch of other little idiosyncrasies that weren't mentioned on the show and things with respect to to some of the things, the painting and so forth, that all kind of come together when you're in that spot. So I just think it'd be a fun opportunity to share those things as best I know them, and to answer questions and get people's opinion, and see what we missed, get other perspectives on how one might have navigated through the path to get to that point. I made some assumptions about the peers and other sorts of things that may or may not be right. There's no way to officially know, and so to
Hey,
actually
man,
hear.
John Palingard said your peers were right.
Did he actually say that?
In the hair, at least. He said
In the hair,
it was,
right,
it was
yeah.
great how they picked up in the hair. But I don't, there's so many different things with Boston still to be argued over. Like you and I, when we get together in Boston, we're gonna have an argument over that bridge.
Yeah, right. So that
It's gonna be a
to me,
fun
that,
argument, but it'll be an argument.
for me, as someone who spent a lot of time, with my family, thinking about the various elements of that solve, it's part of it is selfish, in that I'd like to hear from other members of the community on their perspective of what we missed, what we got right, what different things that they thought that might be a different way to arrive at that same point. So that's a big part of it for me, and why I'm sort of looking forward to it, and hoping as many people come as possible to kind of be able to have that dialogue.
So people are asking when and where the meetup is. It's Saturday, June 24th at about noon, at Landgun Park. We're going to meet there. It's a big park, and we're not sure if kids are going to be playing on the field or not. So we're going to meet right around the field. You said there was a pier behind it where if there's people on the field, we'll just hang out back there.
Yeah, there's plenty of space. I mean, I think, as we told in the Expedition Unknown piece, they were rebuilding the park and trying to raise it a few feet above sea level, and so that construction work has been completed. But what it's resulted in is a really beautiful park, with a lot of seating areas overlooking the harbor and boats coming in. So there are plenty of places to hang out, certainly.
Yeah, and those conversations that we have there and everybody getting together, I think it's going to be fun for you. I think it's going to be fun for everybody else. I know you've gotten there's like the conspiracy theories online, so I know you've gotten a lot of flack from people, but I think most everybody that's coming, and 99% of the community, realize that you were in a TV show, and TV shows aren't always factual. So I think, like, because people didn't have all of the information up front, a minority of loud voices filled in some gaps where I feel like once the meetup happens and those conversations happen, people will understand a little more. Because I got a bunch of your story from you, and as soon as I talked to you, I was like, oh shit, he's 100% legit, and he's just so and friendly and fun. So I think once those conversations happen, I think people will be satisfied.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a lot of cool stuff that didn't actually make the Expedition Unknown episode, about things that were in the park before, and
Yeah.
shapes and numbers and bocce ball courts and various things that kind of helped us to piece it all together, that I'd love to share with people and get their perspective on. As George mentioned, probably 99.9% of the community has reached out, or when they've reached out, have been great. We've definitely gotten a bit of grief here and there from some folks who had either alternative explanations or just wanted to be disruptive, which is among the reasons that I've been a relatively publicity shy, but for the most part, the folks who've reached out and chatted with me and asked questions and been looking for other casks have been great.
There is a story, and I'm not going to tell the whole story now, but I'm going to tell you enough to where you'll know where I'm going with this, that I absolutely want you to tell people in Boston. Just the whole story of it. There was a point in time where part of this cask was pulled out of the ground and left on a picnic bench over the weekend, sitting at that park. And when we get to Boston and everybody's around, you got to tell that story, because when you told me, like, my mind was blown. Like, anybody walking past this park on a Saturday could have just picked that shit up and we've been
There
looking
was,
forward for 40 years.
yeah, and so I'll keep my lips sort of sealed about it for now, but there were some insane coincidences, some things that happened with the construction crew, some things that happened with as George mentioned, the cask being left out overnight. Just a confluence of events that had to happen in exactly the right sequence at the exact right time, or the thing would have been lost forever. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I've shared some of this stuff with George, and I've shared some of it with Christina. It's pretty mind blowing that it actually was found, because
Yeah.
there were so many things. There were many more things that could have gone wrong, that then did go right to have impacted that.
I think that's what I'm most excited about with this meetup and with this documentary, because I've always said that my favorite story of The Secret is the Chicago cast being found, because it was legitimately 4 or 5 friends who were doing this on their weekend just to have fun. It was sort of a bonding experience. There were no expectations. There were no egos. There was, nobody was going to get rich and famous. Finding it was just 4 friends doing some, having an adventure together. And my favorite secret story has been replaced by yours. Like, it is mind-blowingly insane how many random things just happen to happen in order for you to get this thing. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, no, it's a good tease. And there were some things, where my daughter had been learning about the American Revolution and history in the weeks before the cask had been found, that sort of also led us to that place. And had she not had those history lessons, that week, I don't know if we would have actually stopped in that spot, et cetera. So there's just a confluence of things that kind of all had to happen in just the right order for for us to kind of be lucky enough to find it that day.
Yeah. And Christina, you got it's a big job telling these stories. Like, I don't know how you're gonna pack this into like a 2-hour documentary, because there's so much stuff to go over. Is that what you're shooting for? Are you going for like a longer series, or?
Yeah, it's definitely a feat. I wish that it was my full-time job just to make this documentary, because there would be so much more time in the day. But yes, it's so much fun, and I love doing it. So right now we're aiming for a feature-length documentary, so that would be around an hour. But it can go many ways. But with documentary storytelling, you kind of have to let it tell you what it wants to be through the stories and through the things that you learn along the way. So right now, like, all I'll say is we're aiming for at the very least, a feature length hour-long piece. But it could turn into something a little bit more. It could turn into like pieces that come out like once, like a series type thing, but I'm not sure about that. So I don't want to say anything for sure. What definitely will happen is we will make a long form video documentary story.
So you're like is it cinema veritas, where you just turn on the camera and let what happens happens? You don't have an agenda with this documentary, is what I'm getting at.
No, there's not an agenda, because it's not so much cinema verite. That's great. It's kind of like, the interviews are sit down stage, not staged in the way that the background is. I'll make sure that there's, it denotes who the person is and what they do. So in that regard, they're like sit down planned interviews where I like write down a ton of questions. But at the same time, in doing that, I'm completely open to the way that the story takes me. And so I know at the core, I still want it to be about the community and how cool this whole story is, but it could go a bunch of different ways based on the people that I talk to and what they say. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
So there was I turned off viewable comments for this, but I can still see some of them. And there was a comment that I wanted to reiterate. When I first met Christina, there was one question that her answer, whether or not I continued, was dependent on her answer, I think, without her ever knowing it. I asked her if the documentary was going to come out, because so many people plan these things and people get excited for it and they don't come out. And she assured me, she was like, yes. I was like, what if you don't get funding? She was like, it's still going to come out. I was like, what if it doesn't get a theatrical release? She's like, it's still going to come out. I was like, if this thing makes no money, she's like, I'll put it on YouTube or something. It's going to come out. Whatever gets filmed, everybody's going to be able to see. So as soon as she said that, I was like, okay, I'm in.
Yes.
As long as this hard work isn't for nothing.
No, absolutely not. That is a promise. It will come out. It will come out one way or another. Yes, we all wouldn't be putting in all of this work and time for it to fade into the background. It's definitely going to come out. I'm so excited about it. And we've already been working for like a year. And we had a little bit of time that was tricky because it was the pandemic. So there was only so much we could do. So now that we're feeling a little bit better about things and still being safe, of course, but we are, full steam ahead. So it's definitely going to come out.
And the documentary sort of changed scope, right? Like when you first started planning this was really, because you make films that, a lot of the ones that I've seen, they're very Boston centric. And just from what you've said earlier, when you started this out, it was very Boston centric, which makes sense with your background. But the scope broadened a lot, and I'm betting your budget didn't. So while the podcast doesn't always like to ask people for money, I believe you've set up like a GoFundMe to help offset some travel costs if anybody wants to donate. It's not like a requirement or anything.
Right. Yes. That's so kind of you to mention it. Yes, so far it's all self-funded, which is a little obviously limiting because I've so far been able to interview all the people that are drivable. But there's so many people I want to get to that are a flight away. And that sort of thing. And I'm also cultivating my own business as well. So there's only so much time and funds to go around. So I did set up a little GoFundMe that is a space to donate to the creation of the podcast, of the documentary.
Yes.
And
podcast gets no money.
It's solely for the creation of the documentary, and that kind of thing. I'll bring that up so I can read a little bit more to it, but that includes things like travel costs. Sometimes a special microphone has to be rented so that it's really good sound quality. I want to get the picture professionally color graded at the end of this because that is just like night and day for production quality. That costs money. So things like that. And again, no, it's so hard, like asking people for money, and I don't want to do that. It's just something that I just want to make this as good as it can be. And so anything is super appreciated. And we can post the link somewhere if that's helpful. And I'm also going to create a little sizzle reel to put in there that will show little clips that we've already shot. I have a professional Instagram account. It's at KV_ography. And there I have a highlight that says the secret doc, and I'm posting all behind the scenes stuff in there along the journey. So far you'll see a little picture of Jason, some of Joe Ellen, a drive, things like that. And so I'm going to definitely keep the community updated. And that's another sort of, token of this is going to happen because I'm constantly putting stuff out there and posting the behind the scenes. So I wouldn't do that if I wasn't going to like post something in the end. So I'm going to keep updating that GoFundMe with relevant and updated information for everyone to see. And I think at some point we might talk about, I know George, like you were talking about, maybe like we can do some different levels. Yeah. Incentives that, we could maybe get something like some signed books or things like that, some one-on-ones. So we'll be posting more in there as well. But thank you so much for anything.
Yeah. So me and Jason have kind of been putting our heads together on some stuff that we could give back to the community for people who do donate. Not that it's a requirement, but the podcast often does stuff where if you give money to somebody, we give shit away. So I've got some stuff that Byron owned, we might be able to throw in. We were talking about getting some books, probably some reprints because the first editions are expensive, and getting them signed by all the creators or as many of the creators as we can, and giving those away to people or credits in the film. Or maybe we can do one of those old school 50s date auctions where like if you give us a bunch of money, you can take Jason to dinner. Jason, how much do you think you're worth? How much could we pay your wife to rent you for the evening? It's like that old movie, An Indecent Exposure. If I give you $1 million, can I have your wife?
Yeah, I mean, so we're just brainstorming on sort of some fun incentives. I think we'll come up with things that people will enjoy. And as Christina mentioned, I believe that the documentary is going to be a big success. tons of fun, really interesting, showcase all the great things about the community and the hunt. I think as she initially mentioned, she had originally just approached me after reading the Boston Globe article and thinking that it was a Boston story. And I kind of quickly disabused her as best I could of that notion, and said, really, it's more. I think that the story really should be about the secret as a whole. This is a story that's being that's that a lot of people I think are waiting to hear. And the Boston piece is one sort of very small pillar of a much bigger and more interesting and more diverse and more exciting story. And Christina's being really humble about her background, and she can certainly share a link to her portfolio site, but I've been really impressed with the work that she's done to date. I think you created the official documentary for the city of Boston on the Boston Marathon bombing. She's been nominated for a couple of New England Emmy Awards, has won some other prestigious awards. So her work is really impressive. And so I'm personally ecstatic to have her help bring the story to life.
Yeah, you can find some of her work on her website. My favorite is about some school children in their garden. Like that sounds like the most boring documentary you could ever watch, but it was amazing. It was great.
Thank you so much both for saying that. That's so kind. I both of those are short form documentaries, and that's the stuff that I love doing. Monzo is the story about the students in Arizona, which again, it's where I went to college, and they had a garden in the middle of the school, and it was in the middle of a food desert, and it was just like that's when I fell in love with creating documentaries. And then, like Jason said, it was it's called Remarking the Boston Marathon. It's actually linked in I think my profile or my portfolio is linked in the GoFundMe as well. But yeah, that was an incredible story. I mean, we got to talk to inspiring folks about those who lost their lives or families of those who lost their lives in the Boston Marathon bombing. And so that was a short form documentary about the creation of the markers to signify those lives and honor them. And then the other story that I really enjoyed making was in 2021, and it was the State of the City documentary for the mayor of Boston at the time. And that was on sort of the local news channels right before he delivered his remarks. Back then it was Mayor Marty Walsh, who's now the Secretary of Labor, I believe. But so that was right before that was actually right after the pandemic. So, but yeah, I'm super grateful I got to link up with Jason because, just hearing his stories and all of the incredible work that everyone does and that the fun that is in this hunt, it was just something that I was like, this is going to be the best thing I've ever made. So I'm really excited and grateful to be along the ride and a fly on the wall. It's not about me, so that's why I don't like to mention all this stuff, but just to fill the time. But I want to be a fly on the wall.
Everybody's asking for the link to the GoFundMe, so I'm going to go find it real quick.
I can put it in the chat if you want. I was just
do that.
Thank you all so much, anyone. I really appreciate it. So grateful.
Yeah, if you do that, I'll post it somehow in chat.
And I every single cent's going to go directly towards the creation of this documentary in full, so nothing will be lost on that.
There we go. Let me see if this will send. Yeah, there you go. So I posted the link. What I like, one of the things that I like most about this documentary is what you were talking about before with sort of the cinema veritas. Like every time someone comes to the community with a documentary, that documentary is about them, right? It's a guy named James Renner who did a documentary about The Secret. But it wasn't about The Secret. It wasn't about the people who work on The Secret. It was about James working on The Secret, right? There's another guy who's trying to get a TV show. He's in the community. And it's not about the community and it's not about The Secret. It's about him working on The Secret. Whereas this ain't about you at all. Like you don't like other than liking the magic of the hunt, you don't seem to care about digging one of these up. So it really is like this seems to be a way for the community to tell its own story, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would be interested in digging. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I have enough. I don't think I'm smart enough based on all of you, like watching on what all of you do. It's so inspiring. But I mean, I think it's really cool. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm not going to be in the documentary at all. There's a reason I didn't go into broadcast journalism. I did that for a little, and I was like, I feel like I like to be behind the lens. So I'm not going to be. My questions won't be in the video. I'm not going to be in the video asking the questions. It's all going to be the folks that make up this community. So I will be invisible behind the lens, which is my happy place.
Which is awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I think we've kind of talked about as much as I wanted to talk about. Is there anything that you guys feel like, because I don't want to keep you guys, we normally do this for like 2 hours, and I don't want to keep you guys on here for 2 hours. We got a lot of stuff to plan, and you guys have a lot of work to do. Is there anything that you feel like we should touch on that we haven't? Like, Jason, how's it feel to be rich and famous now? Everybody.
Yeah, I don't know about the rich or the famous.
Is Christine? Christina? Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to?
I'm
You're
trying to
thinking
think.
you're thinking about coming on the cruise too, right?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, it just sounds incredible to be in such a random spot with so many incredible community members. Like, it's just like a juxtaposition that would sing, sort of. So I'm definitely working to get there. That's, something that's definitely bookmarked on my list. So I think that could be really cool. More footage and more of the same thing we're doing at the meetup, sort of thing. But I'm trying to think. We hit on, the documentary, our intent for it, the meetup. I think we pretty much hit on it all. I'm really grateful to having us on here, and thank you to everyone who's watching. This is really cool to be a part of. I'm so glad I met Jason, and I stumbled upon this article, and like we said, everything happens for a reason. So it's going to be a great story.
I know you guys haven't been able to see any of the comments, but I can sort of see comments scroll by, and they've all been really positive about the documentary and about you as well, Jason. So rest assured, I think people are excited. People are begging for the link to the GoFundMe and for information about the meetup. So hopefully everything will go great, and we won't have anybody outside of the ballpark yelling at us again.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Look forward to whoever is local and can come by or is coming in from other places. Excited to meet everyone and tell a little bit more about the hunt, the things that we found, and hear everybody's, as I mentioned before, as everyone's perspective. Really looking forward to it.
Can I ask two questions, Jason? You can feel free to answer. It's the same question, but two parts. You can feel free to answer no, just a blanket no. During the meetup, do you plan on bringing any parts of the cask? Because a lot of people have never seen one. And I know that was a big thing when Brian came to St. Augustine. He brought his, Rob in Chicago too, just for people to like look at it. I wouldn't recommend letting anybody hold it, but like,
Yeah,
or even touch it.
no, I totally be open to that. It's as people saw, it's in multiple pieces, so it's really, really fragile. In fact, it still has the dirt encased on it from when it was taken out of the ground. I've got the plexiglass pieces that are kind of with their original patina, hasn't been cleaned at all. But I can bring along some or all of it along with the gem for folks to take a peek at.
Yeah, there's a lot more of it than was seen on Expedition Unknown. Like there's some pictures of a bunch of it collected, but on Expedition Unknown it looked like there was like a lid and part of a key.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more.
Well, as I mentioned to George, Expedition Unknown told part of the story, right? It didn't tell everything. It's impossible to get sort of the full breadth of the story and kind of what we went through to find it, and the ways that we kind of put together some of the clues and some of the other things that I mentioned early on, and some of the things that just weren't sort of relevant for the show in the whatever it was 40-50 minutes of the episode. And the episode also has included a lot of backstory and basically sort of information for people who weren't familiar with the hunt at all. It's a TV show, right? So they have to do lots of things, and so I've spent probably several hours with George over the last year or two, kind of telling him more things about what we found, and a part of that is the physical cask. They only showed bits and pieces of it, but yeah, we recovered, I don't know, probably 60-ish% of it. And so, yeah, happy to bring that along and let people kind of take a peek at parts of it up close.
Yeah, I think what you said was an important point too for people to keep in mind with the story of Boston as a whole. Basically, everything everybody knows about Boston came from a TV show, and a TV show has a specific job, and that job is to entertain people. It's not to give 100% accurate information to a niche group of treasure hunters, right? So I think a lot of the anger that was that was directed towards you, I know it wasn't your fault. I think it was misguided because people didn't understand that what they're trying to get exact and niche information from is an entertaining TV show, right? It's not a documentary. It's not. It's entertainment.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
that's absolutely it. And that's again, I think one of the reasons why I was excited when Christina approached me, because I think it's an opportunity to get sort of the full story of the Boston hunt to a broader audience. In addition, as I mentioned, I'm just sort of a speck in this story. So the broader tale of the secret and the legacy of Byron and the guys in Chicago and Cleveland and the people who are still searching for it and all the rest of the story. But it's a good opportunity for the elements of it that are dedicated to Boston to cover the components of the story that didn't make it into either the Boston Globe article or into the Discovery Channel episode. And as I mentioned, for those of you who come in person, there are just a lot of other cool things that you can gather when you're actually in that spot and seeing where the Christopher Columbus statue was and making your own judgment about whether or not there are 5 piers or 6 piers or 7 piers or no piers, and actually being able to see the signal flags on the USS Constitution and seeing where Paul Revere would have crossed the water and all those other elements. As I mentioned, some of the numbers in the image correspond to some of the things that used to be in the park but are no longer there, that were there before it was redesigned. So putting all those things together and letting people kind of judge for themselves what they agree with, what they disagree with, and then letting Christina share as many of those parts as she can as well.
so we'll go ahead and on that we'll go ahead and end. I'm going to ask you both one question, Christina. I'm going to ask you first and give Jason a chance to think about his answer. Um, like this all happened because of a book, right? That came out in 1982. Most books don't have, the kind of cult following, even treasure hunts. Like there's other treasure hunts that came out around the same time. There's puzzles me and Christina were talking about before we went live that came out at the same time. They don't have a cult following. So Christina, I'm going to ask you, what what do you love about The Secret enough to want to tell its story?
I mean, I feel like I keep saying the same answer, but it's the people. I mean, the people that make up, I think it's the people that make up the legacy that like Byron created all those years ago. And I also think it takes, like I said before, when you said, about me having interest in like finding a gem, I think it takes a special type of person to find the treasure, or to want to dedicate a portion of their life to finding the treasure, or to want to share this with their family to find the treasure. So I'm obviously biased because I'm a storyteller, but I think it's the people and the stories they have along the way in this such niche and not well known activity that is just so interesting to me on so many different levels. And I'm learning something new about The Secret every single day. So I think that would be my answer, for at the risk of answering the same thing a bunch of times, but I love the people.
Yeah. So Jason, I'll turn it on you. You found The Secret, you worked on it with your family, you found a cask. Now you're part of, like it or not, you're part of Secret's history. You will always, in this core niche group of people, you will always be remembered. You will always be brought up. Your name's out there forever. What was it about The Secret that, like, there's so many things you could do with your family. You could play baseball with your kids. You could put your daughter in ballet. What was it about The Secret that drew you in?
Yeah, it's a similar answer to Christina's, in that It was really all about family togetherness and exploring new places. There are just not that many activities that are symbolic of a true family adventure as The Secret, right? I mean, quite literally what we were doing is going into Boston on Saturdays and Sundays and poking and prodding around. We went to pretty much every corner of the city. Uh, we went to the Fenway area. We went to the Greenway. We went to Lars Anderson Park. We went to places that seemed way out of bounds. A lot of hunting around Harvard, a lot of hunting along the Charles River, exploring different landmarks. And, along the way, there was a lot of family togetherness, right? I mean, so it was getting ice cream and gelato and big pretzels at Fenway Park and all the rest of the things that kind of went and were associated with the different Boston landmarks. And there was zero expectation that we were going to find it. And so it really never entered my mind when I humored my kids in whatever year that was, 2000, I'm going to forget the year, 2017 or so, when we first saw one of the episodes, and bought the book on Amazon, that we were legitimately ever going to find it. My kids were little at the time. They're teenagers now. And it was really just to come up with activities to do with them over the weekend. And what's more fun than going on a family adventure or multiple family adventures to find buried treasure. And then when we stumbled upon the site, and I can talk a little bit more about this in Boston, with sort of my daughter having a perspective on the American Revolution. My kids actually are both figure skaters and had skated in that rink with metal walls. So it was sort of this iconic place for us. When we were kind of in that spot and it all came together, it was the holy shit moment that maybe it's actually here. But it was all about sort of the family togetherness as the reason that we did it. And hopefully, as other people out there in Secret Land are looking for it, that they'll have the same sort of experience in some way that we did.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, it's something that searchers tend to forget. I think one of my favorite memories I like to search at this place called the St. Augustine Amphitheater. And as soon as you go into the amphitheater, I like to take my son with me. He really likes it. As soon as you go into the amphitheater, there's this big, huge stone. And if you look behind the stone, there's a collection of, you guys are in Boston, you might not know what these are, palm fronds. Palm trees have the big fronds on them. Well, if you cut off the green limbs, you're left with this big stick. And me and my kid like to carry those around and like pretend we're pirates and sword fight and shit in this old park. Like, it's one of my most fun things to do. People often ask, how many holes do you dig? Like, I don't really. I fight pirates with my son. So like, yeah, I think that was a great answer.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a big part of it. I'll never forget that the first time we were searching around Boston University, there were references to Martin Luther King that we thought made it feel like it was maybe somewhere around BU. And we were sort of like, my son and I were searching around, just kind of looking and kind of wandering in circles. And a student came up to us, a BU student came up to us and said something to the effect of, "Are you searching for something?" And she was, "Are you looking for something?" And she just thought we were looking for a building or an ice cream shop or a bathroom or something. And I said to her, we're looking for buried treasure." And just kind of that sort of that amazing moment that I sort of realized when I was talking to her, that holy shit, yeah, that's actually what we're doing. I'm here with my son in Boston University looking for buried treasure.
Yeah, that's, one more really quick thing. That's like another thing is like, it's like magic. It's like the whimsicalness of being a kid again, like that adults often forget because we take ourselves so seriously or we work these important jobs. But like, it's like, if you can channel into like the most genuine moments of like when you were a kid, like that's where like true happiness comes from. And I feel like doing this either yourself or doing it with your family like really allows you just to like play in the world. And like obviously it's hard work, and I'm not underplaying that. Like it's incredible the work that you all have done, but it's like it's like another form of playing in a world that is often like takes itself so seriously. And I think that's another thing I love about it. I think that's like the secret of life. So I think that's another really cool component.
Yeah, what's better than searching for buried treasure with your 7-year-old son, right? And
Everybody
when you
wants
don't
to be a
find it,
Goonie.
which we didn't expect, go out and get some ice cream. And that honestly, that was what it was all about for us.
I love that.
Cool. Well, I guess that's a good place to end. Thank you everybody for watching. I'll post the details about because people have been asking about the cruise, the documentary, and the GoFundMe, as if there aren't links in the event section for all of these things. So I'll post all of them again, and then I'll get this up on YouTube shortly so everybody can watch it there. But thanks for coming, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, George.
Bye, guys.